Welcome to News Today, a PodNu service. Today is Saturday, March 26, 2022, Central European Time. There was an ice shelf the size of New York City that broke off in East Antarctica, which had been thought to be stable and not affected by climate change. An ice shelf fell off for the first time in human history when satellite images showed it. It happened last week at the start of a weird warm spell. In some places, temperatures rose more than 40 degrees Celsius above normal. Images from satellites show that the area has been shrinking a lot in the last few years. Scientists now wonder if they overestimated East Antarctica's strength and resistance to global warming, which has been melting ice on the smaller western side and the more vulnerable peninsula. Catherine Walker, an ice scientist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, says the ice shelf that kept the Conger and Glenser glaciers from getting warmer water broke off between March 14 and 16. The ice shelf was about 1,200 square kilometers wide. Because this hasn't happened before, she said, it's very scary. The Glenser-Conger ice shelf presumably had been there for thousands of years and it's not ever going to be there again, said University of Minnesota ice scientist Peter Neff. This isn't the problem, Neff and Walker say. It's not how much ice was lost in this fall. That isn't important. It's more about where it happened, not what happened to the person. Neff said he fears that East Antarctica may not be as stable as previously thought. If the water that is frozen in East Antarctica thaws, which could take millennia or more, it would raise the seas around the world more than 50 meters. That's why it's important to know this. People have done a lot of research on the West Antarctic ice sheet, which is more at risk. She is the co-director of the Scripps Polar Center at the University of California, San Diego. She says that researchers should spend more time looking at that part of the continent. East Antarctica is starting to change. There is mass loss starting to happen, Fricker said. We need to know how stable each one of the ice shelves are because once one disappears, it means glaciers melt into the warming water and some of that water will come to San Diego and elsewhere. It has been shrinking a little since the 1970s, says Neff. This ice shelf is the one closest to Australia. During 2020, the shelf's ice loss sped up to about half a month or so. We probably are seeing the result of a lot of long-time increased ocean warming there, Walker said. It's just been melting and melting. It's still not clear what one expert thinks about the whole thing. Most of East Antarctica is relatively secure, relatively invulnerable, and there are sectors in it that are vulnerable, said British Antarctic Survey geophysicist Rob Larder. The overall effect of climate change around East Antarctica is it's chipping away at the edges of the ice sheets in some places, but it's actually adding more snow to the middle. It's called an atmospheric river, and last week, it brought a lot of warm air and even rain to parts of East Antarctica. Scientists have been talking about it for the last week or so. This is the closest station to the ice shelf that broke off. It is about 300 kilometers away, and it reached 5.6 degrees Celsius, which is about 10 degrees warmer than it usually is. And that, Walker said, probably is something like, the last straw on the camel's back. Fricker, who has explored a different, more stable East Antarctic ice shelf, said an ice shelf there is the quietest, most serene place you can imagine.